You won't believe who turned up at the shop hoping for a meal, and ended up revealing a legend. It was supposed to be just another morning at Premium Auto Repair until the ragged man showed up. Graying hair tangled, clothes worn, yet his eyes glimmered with something unreadable as he gazed at the Porsche 911 parked inside, its hood open for 3 days. Tyler, the youngest mechanic, laughed without mercy. "This isn't a soup kitchen, Grandpa," he jeered. The man responded softly, and yet there was an undeniable precision in his voice when he said, "I'll fix that Porsche in exchange for a meal." The shop fell silent, until Jake, the veteran mechanic with 2 decades of experience, erupted with laughter. "The beggar wants to fix a $200,000 car?" Marcus, the owner, barely looked up from the paperwork. "Jake, call security," he barked, but the man shook his head calmly. "I'm not asking for money, I'm asking for work." The derision mounted, but only one person watched with intent. Sarah, the lone woman on the crew, stood at the back, her curiosity quietly stirring. Marcus rose, irritated, and when the man didn't flinch, simply tilted his head, listening to the engine Jake had just started, and failed to diagnose. He called the real problem without hesitation. "Direct injection system," he said quietly. "Fuel, pressure sensor failing. That's why the engine stalls at high revs. It's electronic, not mechanical." Jake's face drained. 3 days wasted, and this ragged stranger named it in one sentence. Tyler's chuckles faded to stunned silence. "How can you know that just by listening?" he stammered. Marcus, back in control, scoffed. "Beggar guesses." But the stranger only smiled, softly as though memories of better days echoed behind it. "That specific noise happens when the sensor sends inconsistent data to the control unit," he explained gently. "The engine cuts off fuel injection as a safety measure." Silence swallowed the shop. Sarah stepped forward tentatively. She had heard machines. It was her job, but this was deeper. "How do you know so much about Porsche?" she asked. Marcus guffawed. "Where'd he learn? The junkyard?" More laughter rose, but the man's smile slipped. In his eyes flashed a pain unseen, ancient and sharp like a scar. "Various places," he said evasively. "I can prove my diagnosis. I just need a diagnostic tool." Tyler shrugged toward the expensive OBD scanner in the corner. "You know how to use that?" he prodded. The answer was simple. "I do." That brief reply did something to Marcus. "All right," he said, forcing a cruel grin. "You figure it out, get the diagnosis right, and I'll give you $20 and a sandwich. Get it wrong, and I never want to see you here again, and I'll film your blunder and post it." The man nodded, as though wagers like this were routine. Sarah noticed something odd about his hands. They trembled, but not with fear, with constrained anxiety, like someone holding back a truth withheld too long. He took the scan tool. Marcus grinned. Tyler and Jake placed bets on how long it would take for him to fail. In moments, though, they watched with nervous fascination. The man plugged the scanner into the Porsche's OBD port with the ease of a practiced hand. He navigated complex menus as though the screen were an extension of himself. $20 and sandwich? He doesn't even know how to turn it on, Jake whispered to Tyler. But the stranger ignored that. Scanning, he listened. Finally, he pointed. "Code P0294. Fuel pressure sensor out of parameters. Just as I said." Jake checked, voice barely more than a whisper. "That's right." Marcus's eyebrow twitched, phone lowering. "Beginner's luck," he muttered. The man turned toward him. His eyes glinted. "Do you want me to explain why that sensor fails on this model when the fuel filter isn't changed regularly?" Marcus's edge softened, no answer forming. Tyler tried deflect. "You got lucky this time. Doesn't make you a real mechanic." The man's voice dropped, the smile gone. "A hunch. I can list 3 other problems that car will have in the next 6 months if they aren't fixed." Tyler stared. Sarah took a step forward. "How do you know that?" The stranger exhaled. "Porsche 911. 2011 to 2015 models have predictable sequences of failures when poorly maintained." Jake shook his head. "Hundreds of times? Where?" The man shrugged. Marcus, unsettled by the attention going to the drifter, cut in with anger. "Listen, Grandpa, this is a serious shop. We don't need cheap tricks." "Tricks?" The man's voice was flat. Then he pointed to a BMW X5 that had been sitting 2 weeks. "You told that customer they needed a new engine, right?" Metric changed in Marcus's stance. "The issue isn't the engine," the stranger said. "It's the high-pressure fuel pump." Tyler swallowed. How could he know by just glancing? The stranger answered by walking to the X5, pointing to oxide on lines wherein pumps. Predictive of pump failure. Jake scanned. Confirmed. Sarah whispered, "We were going to charge 14 grand for a pump." Marcus spat coincidence again. But this time the man repeated it softly, almost mocking, and the shop felt small. Sarah sensed something history-rich in the rhythms of the man's movement. Marcus tried to recapture control. "So, you want the sandwich or not?" he jeered. The man paused, then said quietly, "Heroes don't exist. Only people who've lost everything, and still try to help." He left. Silence, heavy, closed in. Later, Sarah watched as he passed a lamppost missing child photo, and for a moment she thought she saw tears in his eyes. She couldn't stop thinking about him. That night she researched. Direct injection fuel pressure sensor high-pressure pump. Porsche 911, 2011, 2015. The deeper she went, the more isolated the data. Technical tidbits only on engineering and performance podcasts and obscure motorsport forums. Links to a 2007 post by Dark Horse Racing, discussing exactly the faults the man named 15 years before the cars existed. She froze. It wasn't public knowledge, unless you were deep inside high-performance parts development. Tyler found her the next morning, bleary-eyed. "Why are you here so early?" She showed him. "Look, the specs he cited. That post, 2007. He knew before this car existed." Tyler's mouth dropped. "So," Sarah said firmly, "he didn't read it. He knew it." She began to see layers she hadn't understood. Marcus arrived, dismissive. "Still talking about that nutcase? Wish luck disguised as humiliation. Move on." But Sarah held up the screen. "Look at this." She showed the forum post. Marcus stuttered. Sarah whispered, "That was 15 years before the fault emerged." That's when the front door opened. The man reappeared, flanked by an elegant woman. Her dress belonged on showrooms, not streets. "Good morning." The woman stepped forward. "David, this is Catherine Morrison. Her McLaren 720S, diagnosed as beyond repair. She lost thousands being told the car was done." Marcus stammered. Catherine nodded and looked to David. "You told me exactly what was wrong last night before I offered you anything." Tyler barked. "You diagnosed a McLaren." David nodded, calm. "Hybrid System Control Module. Conflict between electric and combustion software protocols. Known issue on 2019 models. Unadmitted by McLaren." Silence. Sarah checked forums. Confidential technical bulletins only for authorized dealers confirmed his claim. Marcus gaped. Jake stared. Sarah understood something deeper was happening. Catherine watched. The ego she'd never noticed in Marcus crumbled. "Make a deal," David said simply. "If I fix her car, not for sandwiches but for a real chance, you give me that." Marcus blinked, sweat beading. "What if you fail?" David's eyes were steady. "I'll never come back and you can film my exit and post it." Everything froze. Then Marcus nodded, voice tight and brittle. 2 hours. David nodded, lifted a hood with reverence as though reacquainted with an old friend. Catherine turned to Sarah. Something about him, she whispered. Sarah nodded, eyes never leaving David. He worked, focused, precise, commanding. Hours passed in minutes until he straightened. Done. The engine thrummed smooth, like pure power in control. Catherine gasped. She nearly cried. She'd been told impersonally that it would cost $80,000 to replace the module, that we can't fix it. She reached for David's hand. Marcus and Jake and Tyler looked ruined. Sarah's pulse raced. That night, watching shadows run, questions smoldered in Sarah's mind. David was not a mechanic. His hands were surgical, his mind beyond theirs. Who was he? Later, on the street, she found him. "Wait," she called. He turned, quiet and weathered. "You're not ordinary, are you?" He paused, years weighing in his gaze. Mechanic was never me. I believed speed could cure pain, until I learned some wounds only heal when you stop running from them. And he walked away. Sarah researched again through sunless hours. By dawn, she whispered through exhausted lips, "David Williams." Photos filled the screen. Trophies, champagne, crowds chanting. The same face beneath the grime. The ghost, 3-time Formula One world champion famed for appearing out of nowhere and winning impossible races. Tragedy struck in Monaco, 2009. A crash at 300 kilometers an hour. He survived. His 8-year-old daughter, watching, died the same night of a heart attack. His wife, shattered beyond repair, followed soon after. David vanished, giving away millions, selling everything, disappearing. Until now. That afternoon, Sarah returned to the shop and found Marcus recording. "You need to see this," she said, turning the laptop around. The video showed yesterday's humiliation. Marcus froze. She slashed in, "You were going to post that." David's figure appeared at the door with Catherine and others. Among them was Jonathan Reed, CEO of Reed Automotive Group, biggest luxury dealership on the East Coast. He approached, respectful. "I heard about your diagnostics. We want you as technical director, $500,000 a year plus profit sharing, maybe $2 million total." David met Marcus's eye. "Interesting how people act when they find out who you are." Sarah stood firm. She closed the laptop. "Marcus, he isn't a joke." She posted the real story. It's everywhere. Notifications flooded in. Outrage over cruelty, praise for David, canceled contracts for Marcus. David turned to Marcus. "You were going to make fun of me. I made you learn humility." Reed handed Sarah a card. "If you ever want to work for someone who values character over appearance." Sarah accepted, pulse tight. David paused at the door, voice serene. "The video you were going to post?" Sarah posted the truth. "Now the world sees who needs educating on empathy." He walked out. Silence followed. Premium Auto Repair's contracts collapsed. Within months, the shop was shuttered. Marcus lost house, car, everything. Tyler and Jake ostracized. Sarah was hired by David's new team, making triple her former salary. A Netflix documentary followed. David, the legend who lost everything and found dignity again, became technical director, making millions but richer in recognition, empathy, purpose. His parting words echoed on screens. "Prejudice blinds us to the extraordinary hidden behind appearances." And when the world turned back to faces beneath uniforms, it remembered, sometimes, the greatest comeback is not about speed, it's about being seen.